guys, welcome back to another episode of Thirdcoastreptile right here on YouTube. Hey guys, we're going to be doing everything you need to know about a Burmese Star Tortoise today on this video. We're going to cover everything from the enclosure to their diet because this is the Burmese Star Tortoise Care Guide video. Also guys, we're going to be doing an Under the Shell segment where I answer one of your questions right here on Thirdcoastreptile. But wait, hold on, wait, there's more. At the end of the video guys, if you stick around, I'm going to be doing an exclusive sneak peek at the new Redfoot outdoor enclosure that's out back. I can't wait to show you guys. Let's dive in. Okay guys, so originally called Burma, the Burmese Star Tortoise is actually from the country called Myanmar, or Myanmar. There's an N and a Y. I'll show you the spelling. But they're from Myanmar, and in the early 2000s, they were critically endangered to the point of extinction. And the reason why, well, there's a couple of reasons. One, land development, obviously for farming and agricultural use, but two, poaching. And there was incentive for this, guys, because it's such a poor country that you could actually get enough money from the sale of one Burmese Star Tortoise to last you an entire year. Now, that's not to go without consequence. If you were to get caught with a tortoise and you were selling this tortoise, you could reach 7 years in prison. So, I don't know how good their prison system is. It just doesn't sound like a fun time. But nowadays, though, the population has kind of bounced back, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One, we've actually created nature preserves that protect these tortoises, and then also through captive breeding efforts, we've been able to ship captive bred Burmese Star Tortoises back into the wild. However, they are still critically endangered. Okay guys, so even though they're like categorized as endangered, right, we are doing so extremely well with captive breeding that they're readily available here on our market in the US. You can in fact get one a lot cheaper than you could a few years ago. And that's why I have so many here at my house, because they've become readily available. And that's great for you guys too. You can have a shot at getting like one of the coolest tortoises you could buy. And one of the reasons why I like them so much is because they don't get very big. Although they are the biggest of the, I guess, star tortoises, the Indian, the Sri Lankan, and the Burmese being the largest one, they still are relatively manageable for indoor enclosures. And that's what makes them very appealing, along with that really cool shell pattern that they have. So let's go ahead, now that we're done with this kind of background information, let's start with the hatchlings and talk about their care requirements, and I'll show you kind of what I have going on as well. Alright guys, so when it comes to the care requirements for these hatchlings that are in here, they're actually all inside that little hide over there sleeping. They're going to come out later on today. The humidity requirements are kind of the bigger elephant in the room there. As hatchlings, they require 75 to 85% humidity, which is a ton. But you have to remember, in the wild, in Myanmar, that humidity level is because of a monsoon season that occurs when they come out to hatch. Usually every year around September to February, they have a really strong rainy season where they get flash floods and the humidity is really high. And they're not stupid when they think about their breeding time and when they want to hatch their hatchlings out, because they want to make sure that, you know, food's available for them and that the humidity levels are super high for them, so they have better chance of survival. And so we have to mimic that here in our enclosures. So when it comes to these guys, you want to use like cocoa core fiber substrate, which kind of looks like this stuff here. I'm grabbing that out. You guys can kind of see that stuff there. That's cocoa core. It's coconut fiber there from their coconut husks. They grind them up. but they're really good for holding humidity in, especially when you need 75 to 85% humidity. Now, when it comes to temperatures inside your enclosure, a good rule of thumb for the ambient temperature in here is 75 to 85 degrees. But right there under that basking bulb, it is 92 to 95 degrees. And that's really hot, but you got to remember where they live naturally, again, it's really hot there. When it comes to the UV exposure for your enclosure, you want to make sure that they're in Ferguson Zone 3, which is like 2.9 to like 7% UV exposure on their shells inside this enclosure. So that is that's a T5 bulb that's rated a 10.0 Reptile bulb, and there's also a a Power Sun UVB basking bulb combination in there as well to make sure that they have those proper UVB requirements. And again, I have 4 of them in here. This is just a 3 foot by 30 on this side. The whole enclosure itself is 6 foot, but it shares it with my radiator tortoise as well. Okay guys, so what I have here in front of me are some hatchlings, but one is not like the other. This right here, if you guys can see, that is an Indian Star Tortoise as opposed to a Burmese Star Tortoise. And this one right here, oh, sorry there, bub. This one right here is a actual Burmese Star Tortoise, and you can see his shell pattern looks a little bit different. We're going to put him back down here. There is a third type of Star Tortoise, and that is a Sri Lankan Star Tortoise. Now they are very similar to the Indian Star Tortoises here, but it's just the locality as opposed to an actual physical difference. Now the Burmese Star Tortoise actually gets a little bit bigger. Where are you going, buddy? They actually get a little bit bigger than the Indian counterpart, but both are very cool in their own right. But today we are focusing on the Burmese Star Tortoises, like this little dude here that's ready to go for a run. Alright guys, so I'm hanging out here next to my adult enclosure here. Really the temperature specs, the humidity specs, everything's pretty much the same. Slightly less on humidity, but not by much. You're talking 70 to 80% humidity as opposed to 75 to 85. So really it's pretty similar. In fact, one of the cool things, I'm going to call myself out here guys, one of the cool things about the YouTube channel and the things that I do is the research that I do prior to doing a video to make sure that I give you guys as much accurate information as possible. I found out that my substrate was wrong in here. I mean, not really wrong, but it wasn't as humidity efficient as it could be. I had just the black dirt in this enclosure, whereas now I have this stuff here, and I'm going to show you guys this stuff right now. This is a cypress mulch, and that stuff right there, it's just, you know, twigs and dirt and stuff with shavings of wood shavings in there and stuff. This is a little different than cypress. I actually use cedar mulch in this one here. The logic behind this for me, with that kind of humidity requirements, I want to make sure I had wood in here that doesn't create mold and doesn't have like mold growth on it. And cedar is really good for a mold deterrent. It doesn't really allow mold to occur inside your enclosure. So with humidity requirements being what it is, I'm really happy that I learned about this, and I've upgraded this enclosure to include that cypress mulch in here as well. As far as the temperatures, again, it's 75 to 80 degrees in here, and it's 92 to 95 right underneath that basking bulb, and the one in the back when it's wintertime. Because it's summertime now, I have turned off the other basking bulb because it gets really hot in here. In fact, I found out that I've been having to leave like these doors open a little bit to let them vent a little bit, because it gets like 90 degrees in there for the ambient temperature, and you don't want to overheat your tortoise. So I found that I've had to actually open these doors up in the summertime here, which, you know, it's not that bad of a deal. I can save some money on electricity and bulb usage back there with the other bulb and create kind of a cooler gradient for them to migrate back and forth and kind of choose what temperatures they like to feel comfortable in. And UV exposure is just the identical as the hatchlings. You just have to understand that your distances might change because they're taller tortoises being adults. Now, when it comes to adult size, you know, they get between 10 and 12 inches. That's it. They're kind of considered like what I would consider on the smaller end of medium tortoises, whereas redfoots, you know, they can get, you know, 15 inches or so. They can get really big. Where these guys here, they stay a little bit smaller. Again, they're the largest of the star species, the Indian, Sri Lankan, and the Burmese star. They're the largest one of the three. But really, they're not all that big, and they can get away with this here 12-foot enclosure that I got right here. This is a Toad Ranch enclosure, by the way, in case you're wondering who makes these enclosures. No, I'm not sponsored by them, but I like to give them a shout out because they have good products, and I'm going to shout out anybody that makes good products and that I can use here on the channel. So, yeah, Toad Ranch enclosure made these. They actually made all the enclosures here in the living room here. I made all my enclosures in the reptile room, which is why they look like they do in comparison to these museum type ones here in the front. But anyway, back to these guys. So, like I said, their breeding season is September to February in the wild. Now in captivity, they can breed year-round. Females tend to lay anywhere from 1 to 4 clutches during that season. I can imagine being a lot more here in captivity, and each clutch is probably around 6 to 12 eggs. So that's a pretty good chance for them to be able to reproduce large quantities per season, especially here in captivity where they could do it year-round. And there's like a whole section I could do on, like, you know, egg laying and dig boxes for females and checking for gravid females and incubation temperatures and stuff like that, which I want to do, but I want to do it when I actually have a breeding set of tortoises here, or turtles. You know, I'm open to that, but I want to experience it with you guys as opposed to just telling you about, hey, you have to have vermiculite and you got to create a dig box and, you know, you can temperature sex them and all that stuff. But I'd rather do hands-on and show you guys. But
we interrupt this video to bring you a special news alert.
Guys, this just in, Husbandry Pro is doing a 30-day free trial. Use the link right here at the bottom of the screen or the QR code scanner. This is for anybody, whether you have a zoo, a breeder, or you're just a private collector like me. Husbandry Pro has something for you. This makes sure you keep track of everything you need to do when it comes to your reptiles, because you want to make sure you provide the best care possible for your reptiles. When it comes to males, you can tell that they're male. They're slightly smaller than the female. They'll kind of have that concave plastron as opposed to the females that have more of a flat belly. Again, the big tell is their tails. Their tails are much larger on males than they are on females. And, you know, I think males are a little bit more readily available than females are on the market. At least, I don't know, I have some hatchlings here that are supposed to be females, and I'm fingers crossed that they are, because I would really like to get some soon. Got questions? Get your answer right here on Under the Show. Okay guys, for today's Under the Show question, it comes from a guy named Tao Lin. Tao Lin asks, hey, I know and understand that tortoises are supposed to eat grass and weeds. However, my tortoise does not want to eat grass and weeds and only is interested in lettuce. How do I get them to eat the grass and weeds that they need? Well, that's a good question. So, instead of me just sitting here and telling you how I do it, I'm going to show you. Hey guys, so when it comes to feeding your tortoise, this is really cool stuff. This is by a company called Arcadia. and they make this really cool tortoise chow. Now these are compressed pellets that you are going to soak in water. The trick here, guys, to get your tortoises interested in eating this stuff is we're going to blend it with our normal lettuce, our dark leafy greens. Think about it like the dark leafy greens are more of like your double cheeseburger, and this is more of your salad. So it's trying to get these guys interested in this stuff. And the concept here is to take more of this stuff and put it into the mix as a percentage as you go on. So start out kind of lighter on this stuff here and then get heavier with your mixture as time goes on, so they get more accustomed to eating this stuff here as opposed to the leafy greens, at least for grassland tortoises anyway. That's the best way I go about it. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So we're going to set this aside. I have a tray of hot water here. We're going to take this like this, like that, and we're going to open up our bag. Again, these are like compressed pellets. They're composed of everything. They got, you guys can kind of see in there, they got like dandelion greens in there, and it's really good. Botanicals, vitamins, bee pollen, grasses. This is all things that are beneficial to your tortoise. So we're going to take out some of these compressed pellets. You guys can kind of see those there. And we're going to drop those right in the water. Now that water is going to allow those to expand, and then once they get to a certain point where they're malleable, we're going to go ahead and introduce our leafy greens, and then ultimately, guys, don't forget, we got to add in our calcium. So I'm going to go ahead and add these in here. We're making a mix for all of the tortoises here in the living room, so I'm going to add quite a bit to get us going. A couple more, and I think that'll do it. All right. I'm going to set this aside. I'm just going to let this soak for a little bit, and I'm going to come back with the calcium and the, we're going to use romaine lettuce today to mix in with this stuff to get them going. Okay guys, now that it's been a little bit, this stuff has had a chance to really soak in here in this container, and you can see just how much bigger these pellets are. You can see that kind of in there now. These are ready to be mixed in with the lettuce. So what we're going to do is take a new container, and we're going to introduce the leafy greens in here next. Grab our stuff, and I'm going to rip the butt of it off, set that aside, and we're just going to create smaller bite-sized pieces for these little guys. We're going to mix this up, make a nice little salad for them. And again, as you're feeding these guys, each feeding, judging on how much they consume, you guys can regulate how much of the Arcadia mix you put in here. The whole key is you just got to transition them slowly and wean them off of these dark leafy greens here. It's not to say that you can't give that to them. I mean, you certainly can. But like 60% of their diet is of the grasses and the hays and the weeds and stuff that are associated with it. So giving them this diet all the time right here isn't really the best solution for them. They need that really high fiber. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our soaked Arcadia pellets here. Oh yeah, that's really nice and mushy. So we're going to take this stuff here. We're going to let that kind of drain out a little bit. And you could smell it. Like you could really smell how this is like really fresh stuff. And these tortoises really can smell it as well too. And that's a trigger for them to come eat because they know it's dinner time. So this handful I have right here, you guys can see that right there, is enough for this entire thing of lettuce. So we're going to drop this in here like so. We're going to blend this in really well and create a nice mixture here. So that way every piece of lettuce that they get has this Arcadia mix on it. Alright guys, now that we have everything pretty well mixed, the next important ingredient, well the last ingredient, is our calcium. Now this is Repticalcium here. You guys can see that. That is with D3 vitamin. It has to have vitamin D3 with it too. I really like having the extra vitamin support for their diet and their nutrition. So we're going to take a little bit here of the calcium and just kind of give it a good dusting over the top like this. Okay. Now as you guys can see this, I'll show you what this looks like. So that's kind of enough calcium for this. It's just a little toss in, a little pinch. And we're going to mix this all together so that way every piece of lettuce, every piece of this Arcadia stuff has calcium on it as well. That way we can take care of their bone health and prevent metabolic bone disease. Okay guys, our mixture here is ready to go. You guys can see that there. Now that's all it takes. We'll go ahead and feed our tortoises here off camera, and that'll answer your questions. So that's how I get my tortoises to kind of eat the Arcadia pellets here. They're not really hip to doing that on their own. You have to introduce lettuce to kind of wean them off of it, if you will. And that's why I create this mixture over time. They'll be more codependent on this as opposed to the lettuce that they're in. If you guys want your question answered here on Under the Shell, you can do so in 3 ways. My hands are filthy. Number 1, you can get your question answered right here in this video in the comments section. You can ask your question on the Third Coast community chat that's on YouTube, the YouTube Third Coast community chat. And also, you guys can go onto Facebook and get your question answered there, the Third Coast Reptile Facebook page. Alright guys, let's finish this video. Okay guys, we are here. This is the Redfoot enclosure. Now this is next to my house. 2 walls are next to the house. Ironically enough though guys, if you look over here, I'm going to turn you guys, so bear with me. This is the wall to the reptile room. So I'll be able to see these guys right from the reptile room. And that's pretty cool. And then if you look back here over my shoulder, this is the new hide that I've been building for these guys. Now it's just in its primitive state. Don't judge me, but this is just its primitive state now. We are running electricity out here, and we're gonna have a basket bulb in there. Also guys, I have planted a couple of trees. Now these are mulberry trees right here, and that's great because they're actually going to grow up and develop right here in the enclosure, and I could just walk in, grab some leaves off, throw them on the ground, and they can, you know, have food for the day. Also, I've done a lot of planting here in the soil. I put new grass in, I put a lot of weeds in, I put a lot of flowers in. It's all right here in the ground. And then also guys, when I get done with the water source, which is the last thing I have to do in here after the enclosure is done, I'm going to put a really nice water source in here. We're going to build another wall on the outside to close this section in. And on the opposite side of that wall, I'm also going to be planting flowers there, hosta plants there, and a bunch of other things like prickly pear cactus, which, fun fact, they are able to survive the Michigan winters here. They can survive year-round. So that's really cool. And that's going to be another food source for them. So this is going to kind of be a natural habitat where I can just grab food, throw it in for them, and I don't have to buy anything. Plus, I'll have the natural sun out here for them. It's kind of an east-west scenario here, if you guys can understand that. So right now, it's morning time, so the sun's on the east side of the enclosure. And as the day goes on, that sunlight is going to get more and more and more and more into this enclosure. And then in the evening, this side of the enclosure is actually going to have a bunch of sun, and that side's going to be a bunch of shade. So they'll always have a shade option here in the enclosure. It'll never be without. And I love that about this spot right here. So, guys, this is my sneak peek. I wanted to show you guys the new updated outdoor enclosure and what we're going to be doing for our Redfoots very specifically. So, there's going to be 9 of them in here, by the way. 9 Redfoots in this enclosure. And I think it's about 18 by 20. 18 by 25 or so. It's a decent footprint for them. And don't forget, we're going to be putting in those sight barriers and other enrichment ideas as we go. Also, guys, I have a question for you. Do you have ideas for outdoors enclosures? Do you have ideas that maybe I can do for the enclosure to make it better? you let me know, guys, and I'll consider it. Maybe we can put it in here in the enclosure. That guy sure as heck isn't going to be in here once I get that wall put up, because this is just for the tortoises. This is his dedicated space. So, all right, guys, we're going to be doing more videos out here. I'm going to keep you guys updated as we go. But for this video, for the Burmese Star Tortoise, I hope you guys learned a lot about those guys. I really love them. And until next time, bye now.